Bible, dear friends. Hello, dear friends. I am Maral. Welcome to Vedic Girl channel. In this video, you will know the answer from His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu regarding how to get rid of mother-in-law, how to get rid of mother-in-law problems. Please stay tuned.
Hare Krishna. Question: why are there so much conflicts between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law in traditional societies with joint families? Answer: when we talk about something which is traditional, within that there is something that is scriptural, there is something which is traditional, which has come from the scriptural as an adaptation of the scriptural, and there is something which we call as traditional, which is actually deviation from the scripture. So for example, there is a caste system in India which is largely birth based now. Now that nominally the name nomenclature comes from scripture, but the structure in terms of birth, it's a deviation from scripture. So similarly, if we see that in the family today, where there is often conflicts between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, the essential problem is not that there is anything wrong in the scripture. If we see the scriptures broadly, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam, they don't get into specifics. They focus on broad principles of dharma. Even if you look at the Mahabharata and the Ramayana also, we don't see them getting into specifics which are mandated universally. Krishna chooses a particular course of action, Ram chooses a particular course of action, Sita chooses a particular course of action. But those are set as examples for us to follow. Not that we have to imitate him exactly. We have to learn the essential principle and apply it in our lives. So with respect to the power dynamic in a traditional household, in general, everybody, unless they are free from conditionings, unless they are spiritually mature or at least emotionally mature, they have a sense of insecurity which they try to cover up with a sense of power, aggressiveness. So most aggressiveness is actually a result of covering up the insecurity that is there within. So if in a family there's a grown-up son, and then there is the mother and the father. So the mother has been the primary female in the son's life till then. And if the mother is not spiritually or emotionally mature, then she gets her sense of security or self-worth by her capacity to control her son and to mold that son according to her will. When a daughter-in-law comes into the house, when the wife comes in, like the wife also has her own, actually there will be some anxiety because she has come to a new house now. But if she also has her sense of insecurity by which she tries to enforce her will in the house, then naturally there will be conflicts. So there has to be, it is said that good fences make good neighbors. That means that even if two neighbors are very friendly and cordial, but if there is no clear understanding of where is the boundary, then if a nice flower or fruit grows, both of them may fight. This is in my area, this is my area. So we have to have, at least to some broad extent, boundaries that are well defined. If you look in the Mahabharata, there are no incidents of Kunti and Draupadi or Kunti and Subhadra having any conflicts. Because although the Pandavas were all devoted to Krishna, Kunti is a devotee of Krishna, Draupadi is a devotee of Krishna, but there was proper understanding of how boundaries are needed to go along with the bonds. Relationship means there are bonds between people, but there are boundaries also. Generally, in all traditional cultures, there is a deference towards the elders. They respect the elders. But at the same time, the elders also have to show their maturity not by dominating the subordinates, but by giving freedom for the subordinates. Because every generation has its space and time, And those who are young, they need their space, they need guidance, but they also need their space by which they can act according to the way they feel inspired to do. So if we see this division, this defining of boundaries is so important, that after the five Pandavas get married to Draupadi, when they come back to their kingdom, Narad Muni comes to visit them simply for the purpose of creating some boundaries. He actually talks with them about the importance of how they should have some proper plan. And then he sits with them, discusses with them, finalizes a plan, and then he departs. So when these boundaries are not defined, then everybody feels as if they are not given their room and everybody else is encroaching on their room. So because we live in a world today which is very different from the traditional world which is described in the scriptures, or even the traditional world which was there, traditional family structure that was there 50 or 100 years ago. So everybody has to recognize that there is the change reality, and within that change reality, how to function positively, how to work in a way that helps everyone to have their space and grow. So if the younger generation recognizes the need to give respect to the older generation, and the older generation also recognizes the need to give space to the younger generation, then things can move forward positively. So unfortunately, if both of them are trying to demand space, then naturally there is agitation because of that. So the best solution is actually to try to focus not on how much space I have in this household, but what is the purpose of the household. The purpose of the household is ultimately to connect with Krishna. So if everybody becomes God-centered and focuses not on increasing their control in the house, but on increasing their connection to the Supreme Controller, then that will help everyone to have the inner security, the inner connection with Krishna that will bring security. And then without the insecurity leading to aggressiveness, there can be proper discussion and there can be a proper understanding of both the bonds and the boundaries. So if in today's ethos, where there is a lot of demand and desire for independence among people, if somebody tries to stamp the traditional structure of authority and hierarchy on people, it can lead to a huge amount of disruption. So recognizing that we have to be fixed in purpose but flexible in the execution of the purpose. The purpose is that the family should live harmoniously. How that is to be done, whether the traditional way of working will lead to harmony in the family today, or based on the change reality, the change psychology of people, everybody needs to find out how best they can work. So rather than fixating on the past, that this is so bad, or the younger generation may feel, oh, this traditional structure is so bad, we have no space for ourselves. And the older generation may feel that, oh, this traditional structure is so good, you young people have no respect for tradition. Rather than fixating on the past, calling it, demonizing it or glamorizing it, we focus on the present and see what is the best way to work in the present in a way that the family harmony can be maintained and everybody can grow spiritually also. Thank you.